The Federal Communications Commission will vote December 14th on a plan to replace current rules enforcing so-called net neutrality. The rules, which have been in place since 2015, placed internet service providers like Comcast and Verizon under strict regulatory oversight, preventing them from slowing down or blocking any sites or apps, or essentially deciding what content gets to users faster. FCC Chairman Ajit Pai has said his repeal proposal would stop micromanaging the internet, but some say net neutrality rules are necessary to protect a free and open internet. In the weeks since the commission released a plan to scrap those rules, more than 200,000 phone calls have been placed to Congress. 500,000 comments have been left on the agency's website, and on social media sites like Reddit and Twitter, the issue has been a leading topic of discussion. Brendan Carr is a commissioner for the FCC. He was nominated by President Trump. Welcome to you, Commissioner.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, well, you recently wrote an op-ed for the Washington Post saying that the FCC is not killing the internet. How is this latest proposal from the Commission any different than similar attempts in the past that were met with resistance?
Yeah, well, thanks. So what we'll be voting on December 14th is a proposal that will simply return us to the same regulatory framework that governed the internet back in 2015 and for the 20 years that preceded it. This is a framework in which we saw the internet develop and flourish. Everyone from consumers to edge providers to innovators were fully protected. I think there's one sort of line of sort of myth out there that says the FCC is about to completely eliminate all regulation of ISPs or internet service providers. That's simply not correct if you look at the document that we're going to vote on.
Well, the primary argument put forth by the FCC for repealing net neutrality has been a decline in broadband investment since the rules were put in place. Yet, in its first quarterly report of the year, Comcast claimed it increased its investment in broadband deployment by over 10%. AT&T says it will expand its fiber network from nearly 4 million homes to 12.5 million homes by 2019. So if these rules are stifling telecoms, then how does the Commission account for these increases?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's actually two issues here. One is there's a pure legal question, which is internet access service a Title I service under the Communications Act or a Title II service? That legal determination is sort of different from these policy debates and from the debates about investment. But once you move into the investment, I think we have seen really negative impacts from our 2-year detour into Title II regulation. The studies that we have that we point to in our document show a significant decline in investment by ISPs. We have affidavits from dozens of smaller broadband providers that specifically talk about the new deployments that they were going to do that they pulled back on because of Title II. And we walk through some examples of innovative new services that ISPs have kept on the shelf as a result of Title II. A lot of studies that look at sort of the increased investment that they claim, they take into account investments made in Mexico or investments made in services that are not Title II services. So I think the studies that we're looking at show a decrease in investment, and that's a problem when you talk about needing to get more investment to get more broadband, more competition to more consumers.
We've already seen examples of service providers blocking, throttling, or offering preferential treatment to particular sites or services. For example, Verizon throttling Netflix's content over their networks. What is your view of those kinds of practices? Are they anti-consumer? And if so, how will the Commission guard against those kinds of practices?
Oh, I don't think ISPs should be engaging in blocking or conduct like that. But again, if you step back, the FCC's Title II rules are not the one bulwark between us and ISPs engaging in that conduct. There are other reasons why we don't see ISPs engaging in that conduct. Those other reasons are going to stay in place after the FCC's vote. Some of those have to do with the Federal Trade Commission, with federal antitrust laws, with the Sherman Act. So there's a lot of reasons why we don't see that conduct. It's not because of the FCC's Title II rules standing alone.
One of your colleagues, Commissioner Jessica Rosenworcel, wrote an op-ed of her own asking Americans to stop the FCC from killing net neutrality. She claims killing net neutrality would undermine what it is that makes, quote, America's internet economy the envy of the world. What's your response to that?
Yeah. Look, I think there is a wide range here where people can have differences of opinion and express those views. And I think that's important, and we're seeing a lot of people express their opinions on this. But our own experience tells us that that claim is not true. Again, we aren't talking about going from a world in which we have heavy-handed regulation to a world in which we have none, or to a world in which we are experimenting with some sort of new, completely free market approach to the internet that would unleash ISPs or create what I call this Mad Max version of the internet. Again, it's important to put in context. We're going back to the regulatory framework that we had in place in 2015 and for the 20 years before it. We saw the internet flourish. We saw innovation flourish. That's the same regulatory environment we're going back to. Again, we're not experimenting with completely eliminating all laws as they apply to ISPs. So I think that's important to keep in mind.
All right, FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr. Commissioner, thanks very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.